She believed her marriage could survive anything, even the bars of a prison cell. For 7 long years, Claire waited for the man she loved, Daniel, a husband whose absence carved silence into every corner of her life. She marked the calendar every month, wrote letters, sent photographs of family gatherings he could not attend. When his release date finally arrived, Claire pressed a trembling hand to her chest and whispered to herself, "This is the day everything starts again." But just 3 days later, instead of celebrating their reunion, she was standing inside a courthouse filing divorce papers. The reason behind that choice was something no one in her small town could have predicted, a secret so personal, so devastating, that it shook the very foundation of what she believed marriage stood for. And to this day, people still ask, what did she discover about Daniel that made her walk away so suddenly? She waited through 7 birthdays alone, 7 Christmas dinners where his chair sat empty, and countless nights when the house creaked and groaned with loneliness. Neighbors admired her loyalty, praising her for holding on to hope. But they also whispered, questioning whether Daniel would be the same man once freedom came. That question would soon have its answer. Within 72 hours of his return, Claire would find herself staring at him with disbelief, realizing that the man she thought she knew had been carrying a truth so heavy it shattered their marriage in an instant. What happened in those 3 days became the subject of endless speculation. What could drive a woman to end her marriage so quickly after sacrificing nearly a decade of her life waiting? What was Daniel hiding that he couldn't bring himself to say in a letter or in the visiting room all those years?
Dark Stories. True crime is your home for chilling crimes, unsolved mysteries, and the darkest secrets the world has to offer. We uncover shocking cases, disturbing truths, and mysterious disappearances. Hit subscribe and join.
Because tonight's case isn't just about a divorce, it's about love, trust, secrets, and the silent battles people fight when no one is watching. To understand why Claire's decision shook everyone around her, we need to go back to the beginning, to the love story that once made people believe they were inseparable. We need to ask ourselves, how well do we really know the people we wait for, the people we trust, the people we give years of our lives to? And would you have the strength to walk away after uncovering the kind of truth that can't be unlearned? Hold on to that thought as we look into who Claire and Daniel really were before the prison walls rose between them. Claire was known in town as hard-working and kind. She worked at a small diner off the highway, pouring coffee for truck drivers and greeting regulars by name. People liked her. She was grounded, steady, the sort of person you could rely on when life got messy. Daniel, on the other hand, was charismatic. Before his arrest, he was the kind of man who lit up a room with laughter, whose confidence made people follow him without question. Together, they looked unshakable, a young couple with big dreams and the kind of chemistry that convinced everyone they would last forever. Their wedding photographs captured pure joy. Claire in a simple white dress, Daniel in a suit that didn't quite fit, but wore his smile like a crown. No one could have guessed that just a few years later, that same smile would fade, and whispers about prison would replace the laughter that once surrounded him. When Daniel was sentenced, Claire told friends she would stand by him no matter how long it took. She visited as often as she could, carrying home-baked cookies through security lines, bringing books he requested, slipping folded letters into his hands when the guards weren't looking. But the man who wrote back wasn't the same one she remembered. His letters grew shorter, his words guarded, as if he were hiding something between the lines. Friends would ask, "Doesn't that bother you?" But Claire brushed it aside, believing that prison simply hardened a man, that once he was home, the weight would lift. What she didn't realize was that those silences weren't just the product of a tough environment, they were warning signs, small cracks in the foundation that hinted at a truth Daniel was keeping from her, a truth she would only uncover after his release. The day finally came. The gates clanged open, and Daniel stepped out into the daylight. Claire was there, tears streaming as she wrapped her arms around him, promising that nothing could ever come between them again. But in the days that followed, she began to notice things. The way he avoided certain conversations, the hesitation in his touch, the long stares into the bathroom mirror when he thought she wasn't looking. It was as if he had brought something home from prison, something unspoken that sat between them like a shadow. And when she finally discovered what that shadow was, it shook her to her core. Because the man who returned to her wasn't the same man she had married, those first 3 days were supposed to be filled with joy. Claire cooked his favorite meals, lasagna on the first night, pancakes the next morning. She tried to make home feel like home again, but every time she reached for him, he pulled back. At first, she thought it was nerves, that maybe prison life had dulled his sense of intimacy. But the third night, when she touched his hand and whispered, "I missed you so much," his reaction stopped her cold. Daniel stiffened, his eyes darting away, his body trembling as if he were hiding from her touch rather than longing for it. Claire's stomach sank. Something was terribly wrong, and she could no longer ignore it. The moment of truth came when she confronted him, asking why he avoided her, why he looked so ashamed. His silence was louder than any answer. When he finally spoke, his words came out broken, heavy, as if dragged from the depths of years of fear. Claire would later tell her lawyer that what she learned that night left her unable to sleep, unable to eat, unable to believe she had waited all those years for a man who could no longer be her husband in the way she once knew. Within hours, she made the decision. She was going to file for divorce, and there was no turning back. Quick question for you watching. Would you stay if you discovered a secret like this after years of waiting? Comment below. I'm curious what you'd do. The divorce papers were filed almost immediately. Friends who had celebrated Daniel's release just days before were stunned. Some accused Claire of being heartless, of abandoning him when he needed her most. Others whispered that maybe she knew something they didn't. Soon, rumors spread across their small town. Rumors about what prison had done to Daniel. Some said it was medical. Others said it was abuse. A few even suggested betrayal, that maybe Daniel hadn't been faithful behind bars. Claire remained silent, refusing to tell anyone the full truth, but the whispers only grew louder. Investigators and lawyers combed through prison records, piecing together fragments of Daniel's time inside. There were mentions of hospital visits, sealed medical reports, quiet transfers between facilities. Nothing clear, nothing conclusive, but enough to make people wonder if Daniel had been hiding more than just emotional scars. Every page of testimony, every medical note hinted at something he didn't want the world to know. By the 35th minute of this story, Claire's decision was beginning to look less like betrayal and more like survival, because buried deep in the official records was a revelation more shocking than anyone expected. A truth that explained Daniel's shame, his distance, and the silence that had eaten away at their marriage long before his release. It turned out Daniel's years in prison had left him with a medical condition so severe it changed his body permanently. The details were sensitive, deeply personal, and for Claire, impossible to live with. She broke down during the divorce hearings, telling the court she felt she had lost her husband long before he was released. To her, the man who came home was a stranger wearing the face of someone she once loved. The revelation hit their small community like a storm. Some sympathized with Claire, understanding her pain and her decision. Others turned on Daniel, speculating, pointing fingers, creating stories to fill in the gaps. The shame was unbearable for both of them. Court documents became public, and whispers turned into headlines in local newspapers. Their marriage wasn't just ending, it was unraveling in front of everyone they knew. But was this really the end of their story? Or was it only the beginning of something darker, something that neither Claire nor Daniel had ever imagined would follow them beyond the divorce papers? Daniel didn't accept the divorce quietly. Instead, he retaliated. He filed counterclaims, accusing Claire of betrayal, of humiliating him when he needed compassion. He told anyone who would listen that she had abandoned him unfairly. The scandal grew, pulling in police reports, restraining orders, and late-night arguments neighbors claimed they overheard through the walls. What began as a private tragedy exploded into a public spectacle. As emotions boiled over, people in town began questioning not just Daniel and Claire, but themselves. How much do we truly owe the people we love? What happens when loyalty collides with unbearable truth? Claire stood firm, but the pain etched into her face told a story that words couldn't. And Daniel, stripped of dignity and reputation, became a warning of how secrets, whether chosen or forced, can destroy trust beyond repair. In the end, the truth about Daniel's past didn't just destroy their marriage, it dismantled the very foundation of who they thought they were as individuals. For Claire, it was a lesson carved into her soul, that sometimes the people we wait for are not the people we get back. So, what do you think? Was Claire right to walk away after all those years? Or should she have stayed loyal no matter what? Let us know in the comments. I read every single one of them. And if you thought this story was shocking, wait until you hear about the woman who discovered her husband's double life only after his funeral. That one will make you question everything you thought you knew about love and trust. Before you go, don't forget, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button so you never miss one of our upcoming true crime stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, we may think we know the people closest to us, but sometimes the truth is hidden in places we least expect.